Take that cat off, sir.
Right now, sir?
That cat could be the only witness to this terrible crime. I want that cat.
Welcome to episode 66 of the Columbo podcast, where neither of us have been able to locate that darn cat.
Thought it might be Columbo's familiar.
No idea what that means, Ian.
Like a witch.
Nope.
Does magic.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a cat.
What's familiar got to do with it?
That's what it's called. The witch is familiar.
Never heard of that before. Is this one of your Harry Potter things?
I could be completely wrong. I'm going to find out whether I'm right about that.
Right, while you're doing that, we'll start with the show. What did you think of this week's episode, Ian, and how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Not bad. It's okay.
Good.
Thoughts?
It's alright. It wasn't awful. I mean, we're coming up now in the home stretch, and we haven't reached the point where it becomes dire like I was warned.
Yes, we have.
Well, there were a couple that we were finding questionable, but...
Excuse me.
What?
Malibu.
Uh-huh.
That was dire.
Right, one episode.
No Time to Die.
I quite like that.
I know. You didn't like Murder, Smoke and Shadows, one of my favourites.
That's true. Well, I didn't hate it though. I mean, this is probably on a par with that.
Really?
You don't think so?
Anything with Sledgehammer in it gets a thumbs up from me.
Sledgehammer.
Will we start?
If you like.
Traditionally, how do we do that? How do we commence? How do we progress?
Well, the traditional way to do things would be via a summary.
Let's break with tradition this week.
Okay.
No, let's not. Give us your summary.
LAPD forensics expert Patrick Kinsley and his lover Kathleen Calvert have a problem. They enjoy the money Kathleen has access to through her marriage to Clifford Calvert, but a watertight prenuptial agreement means she must remain married to retain that access. Murdering Clifford is ruled out. A suspicion would quickly fall on Kathleen, but instead they decide to frame him for the murder of a litigious rival, Howard Seltzer, as a means to escape their predicament. As Columbo investigates Seltzer's death, he enlists Kinsley's help. Clifford's position looks grim, but can the lieutenant's suspicions turn the case around? Or will an innocent man lose his liberty?
Thank you, Ian. We begin in a hotel bar and we see a wealthy man in a cowboy hat. This isn't the first time we've seen this type of character.
It's not. We get the traditional sort of aerial shot to open and we are introduced to this man complaining about problems with a jet.
Yeah, I think we're establishing his wealth here, aren't we? This is first
Vastly
world
wealth.
problems.
Yeah.
What is it? He said he tried to land his private jet or his chartered jet and they had no room or they couldn't give him a slot, and the amount of money that he spends in the city, they should have been able to handle that.
I think he is outraged.
Who is he?
Clifford Calvert.
Yeah, Cliff.
Big Cliffy.
Mm-hmm. He's got a big cigar.
And a big personality.
Indeed. His wife, Kathleen, she arrives on the scene and tells him to return to the ballroom rather than smoking in the bar.
Yeah, he quite rightly points out he's not allowed to smoke in the ballroom.
Yeah, but he is there, it's part of a charity event.
I think it's her event, yes, and so he agrees to return.
So he goes to the ballroom, and immediately Clifford spots a man named Seltzer.
Yeah, you've got a nice sort of jazz underlay here. I like the music. This man, Seltzer, is trying to leave the party.
Clifford shouts across at him, and we learn that there are court proceedings in place.
Yeah, Seltzer doesn't want to speak to Clifford because they're in litigation, and he is forced to, essentially.
Yeah, Clifford runs or owns a investment company, financial investment company, and I think that the claim is that he gave Seltzer poor advice, which cost him a lot of cash.
Well, I think the claim is he gave him misleading advice. So Seltzer is urging him to settle the case because his license is on the line. He could lose everything.
Clifford takes that as a threat. What does he do?
He responds in the most intellectual way he can muster up.
Which is?
A fist to the jaw.
After this, I mean, this is in full view of all the other guests, obviously. Seltzer gets up and scampers off.
Yeah, he skedaddles. He's done with this.
Howard Seltzer was played by Ray Burke, who was born in 1943. He has been in a number of the Naked Gun movies, Days of Our Lives, Babylon 5, Silk Stockings, Coach, Ellie Law, Cheers, Matlock, Star Trek Insurrection.
It's a movie.
Where are we next?
We've got a very brief scene back at the Calvert home.
Kathleen is livid about what happened, but Clifford describes how she will be affected should Seltzer win the case. Now, how will she be affected?
Well, this is a very sort of clunky piece of exposition here. Not the only one in this episode, unfortunately. He explains that if he loses everything, the two of them will be living out of a one-bedroom apartment. They'll have nothing. And I don't think she fancies that idea.
We head over to an apartment.
Yeah, there must be some time passing because Kathleen's got there ahead of us.
She is in bed with a man who we come to learn is Patrick Kinsley, and is describing the incident with Seltzer.
Yep, they talk about Clifford's behaviour, but she makes it clear that she can't divorce him if she wants to keep her money.
Yeah, there's a prenuptial agreement in place.
Quite a punitive one, by the way she makes it sound.
Kinsley opens a bottle of wine with a Swiss Army knife, which will play a fairly significant role in the outcome of this episode.
Yeah.
And they then discuss their potential options.
We could make him disappear.
You don't mean...
Well, we could.
No. Honey, if anything happened to Clifford, do you know who the prime suspect would be? You.
But I'm not the one who would do it.
Well, I already know that.
Besides, the way Clifford and Howard Seltzer hate each other. If anything happened to Clifford, they'd think Howard did it.
They'd still look at you.
I don't care if they look at me.
They do a lot more than look at you. No, sweetie. It's either a divorce, or we see each other occasionally on the sly.
I couldn't live on that prenup.
You don't have to convince me.
I was poor once. I'm never gonna be poor again.
Well, being poor is no fun. I'm with you on that one.
It's not that I want Clifford dead. I just want him out of the way. So we can spend all his money.
The money part sounds great. It's just the other part, not smart.
Don't worry, darling, I agree with you. We shouldn't murder Clifford. Instead of killing Clifford, framing Howard.
Yeah?
What if we killed Howard and framed Clifford?
I must admit to having an issue with this motive, or their logic.
Yeah, I don't think they've really thought this through.
No. So they think that if they simply have Clifford locked up for murder, his wealth, his estate will remain intact and they can just dip into it.
Does seem that way.
Yeah. I suspect that perhaps whoever manages the estate of Seltzer may want to fight that particular position.
Well, they might want to continue their claim, but Seltzer made it clear at the party that he wanted to settle. So if Kathleen with control of the estate could make a reasonable offer, it might be that case could go away.
Sure, but that was Seltzer making that offer. He is no longer there, and the fact is he's been murdered apparently by Clifford, may mean that their stance changes and what they're willing to do, bearing in mind the knowledge that the courts and the public would have of their relationship. They may feel that they have more power.
Possibly, but it may also be that Howard's evidence would be crucial, and without him alive, there isn't a case.
Yeah.
We just don't have enough information.
We don't. I just think it's a little bit... Yeah, I wouldn't be convinced if I was Kinsley, that by being the trigger man I would be guaranteed all this wealth.
I mean, at the start of that conversation, it seemed like he was trying to manipulate her. When he was talking about, it's either divorce or we see each other occasionally on the sly. Mm-hmm. That sounds like he's pushing her towards something. But he doesn't really seem sure what it is he wants her to do. Mm-hmm. And by the end, it's interesting. His only objection to murder is the fact he might get caught. That's the only problem he has. He doesn't like, we'll kill someone. Yeah, why not? Yeah, it's an obvious solution to our problem.
Yeah, they're made for each other. However, I think the other risk as well is that when you get involved in this relationship, as we see towards the end of this episode, there's always that threat that they're having an affair. This isn't necessarily a long-term setup.
Yeah.
As soon as they fall out, each party knows what each other has done, and yeah, I'd be worried about not just the legal ramifications or consequences, but perhaps in fear one party may decide to bump off the other to prevent them from talking down the line.
Entirely possible if they are both open to that means of dispute resolution.
Which clearly they are.
It seems so.
We're having breakfast at the Calvert home at some point in the future, and Kathleen reminds Clifford about a wedding that night that they have to attend at a marina at 7 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, Kathleen spent most of the episode so far either in lingerie, fancy dress, or naked, which she was for most of the previous scene, but now she's wearing a really stylish 90s jumpsuit, which I thought was very of its time.
Clifford leaves, and as he does, we see Kathleen start to put her plan into action by doing what?
She picks up his gun and his cigar.
She does.
Or one of them.
We're now on the street at a payphone, and we see her place a call from a phone booth to Clifford in his car. I'm not sure the purpose of that call.
I'm not sure either. She says she's helping Christina with her dress.
In any case, before she drives away from the phone booth, she leaves a package at the curbside.
Yep.
Now, this package contains the gun and the cigar. And we see that Kinsley is waiting. So when she drives away, he immediately pulls up and picks up this
He does.
parcel. Where do we go?
Seltzer's home.
Kinsley drives over there. So after he picks up the gun and the cigar, he heads over to Seltzer's house, and he gives a story about needing to use his phone for an emergency. So clearly Seltzer doesn't know who Kinsley is.
No, they've never met. There's no relationship there.
Seltzer lets him in, and the alarm goes off. So this is to establish that he has an alarm system in place.
Yes.
Apparently he had it set for the night. He hadn't intended going back out.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that the alarm wasn't part of the plan.
No.
So how would they know about it?
He wouldn't have known about that. Although, I suppose you could have assumed that a large house like that would have had an alarm. Although, I'll contradict myself here, I would suggest that most people have a routine. So, an alarm is the type of thing that you put on at night before you go to your bed.
Yeah, and off in the morning.
And off in the morning. You don't just do it when you go in and you think, I probably won't be going back out, I'll stick the alarm on. It's a night time, it's drawing the curtains, it's putting the alarm on, it's locking the doors.
Yeah.
So this didn't sit particularly, naturally with me.
No, it's an odd one.
In any case, Kinsley makes this phony phone call to, I think it's the hospital, isn't it?
A phony phone call. He uses his phony phone to make a phony phone call.
He does. I think it's the story he's told is his daughter or something, or wife's in hospital.
He says his daughter has been taken to hospital and he's phoning the ward to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
And he's apparently reassured that it's just food poisoning.
Now, as he does so, the phone rings. Now, I thought at that point what was going to happen was that Seltzer would realise that it's a phony phone call.
Yeah.
Because most people don't have two lines in their house like that. It's not that common unless you work from home.
But the phone that Seltzer answers, you see it's got those lights on it for multiple lines.
True.
So you suspect that maybe he does. And we have seen people with multiple lines previously.
Yeah, but that's generally in a business.
Not always.
No?
Fellow who had the gym, Milo Janis.
Yeah, that was his...
In his home, had multiple lines.
True. Who's on the phone to Seltzer?
It's the alarm company.
Why?
Because the alarm went off.
So they're checking to make sure that everything's okay.
Yes.
And they ask him to provide a password.
Yes, and presumably if he was under threat, he would give a fake password.
Mm-hmm.
But instead he gives the real password.
Which is?
Coach.
Yeah. I think that might be a nod. He and another actor were in the TV show Coach.
Oh, that's probably what it is then.
Yeah. They weren't big stars in there,
Yeah.
but they appeared a few times.
They have a discussion about kids. Patrick's talking about what it's like to have kids, and Seltzer doesn't have any kids, so he can't relate.
Yeah, and he then discusses the service situation, finding out how many staff he has.
Yeah, he very blatantly is saying, is anybody else in the house before I shoot you?
Yeah. He discovers that the maid is not due in until tomorrow, so he's on his own.
Yeah, and he says, of course, because they would have come running when the alarm went off.
Mm-hmm. What does Kinsley do next?
He shoots Seltzer. Or he pulls the gun, and as Seltzer realises he's about to be shot, he gets shot.
He then produces from a bag that he's carrying a little hand vacuum cleaner.
And a little tub.
What's he doing here?
He's hoovering up fibres and hairs from the floor. I mean, mostly cat hairs.
Mm-hmm.
And putting them into his little tub. And he then cuts the end of a cigar using his knife. Wipes down the phone. And on his way at the door, presses the panic button on the alarm.
He does. Just to be clear, he leaves the end of the cigar in an ashtray.
He does.
I thought that pressing the panic alarm was quite chancy.
Well, you don't know how soon they're going to arrive.
And also, the alarm goes off, neighbours out mowing the lawn.
Could see a car driving away, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're attracting attention. And as we've discussed, he couldn't have known about the alarm, so this was never part of the original plan.
Yeah.
He's trying to think on his feet, but yeah, if I'm leaving the scene of a murder, I want to do it as discreetly as possible.
Yeah, I would think so. There's a cat there as well, we didn't mention that. There was a cat sort of prowling around.
The next thing we see is a cop arriving, obviously, to check out why the alarm is on or ringing.
I think this is Will.
It is. I think they tried to introduce Will as a bit of a comedy character in this episode.
Didn't work.
Nah. It worked in the past, I think, when it was very subtly done, sparsely used. But we've seen in these later episodes where they throw all the so-called comedy elements into the mix in the same episode, and it overdoes it. It needs to be subtle.
Yeah, when you add a character for comic relief to a show that doesn't generally do that, it doesn't make sense.
No. We're on a bridge at night, and we see Kinsley dispose of the gun into the water.
We do.
And from there we head to the marina, the wedding.
Yep, Kathleen steps out for some air and invites Clifford to come, but he's not interested.
No. He likes to smoke and drink and stay in the warmth.
Yeah, I don't think she expected him to be interested. She might have had a bit of bother if he was.
Yeah. Outside, we see Kinsley. He drops off the top of fibres, hairs, into Kathleen's car. Then he departs and she retrieves it when she's out there, and she places it into her little vanity case.
Yeah, and she returns to the party and demands that Clifford dance with her.
He huffs and puffs, but agrees.
What would she have done if he had not?
Well, I don't think she would have had much of a problem, because I think that this is a weakness in her plan. Okay, so the purpose of this is that they dance, and as they do, she rubs some of these fibres over his back.
Yeah.
It's a very odd place to be, these fibres to be found on the back. What, you'd have to have been lying down?
No, it could have been sitting on a sofa. It could have been on his back from the back of the sofa.
Yeah,
but then why not on his trousers?
Why not on his trousers? Yeah, it's not the obvious place I would have.
Yeah.
I'd put it on his
ankles, maybe.
The ankles, or even his arms.
You would have noticed.
Would you? Some hairs in your...
I mean, it was just her doing it.
Yeah, I suppose.
Who knows? But she could have done it after he took the suit off as well.
Yeah, the whole purpose of doing it at that wedding was just so that Columbo could get a photograph of it later.
Yeah, and see it two different ways.
Yeah, in fact, you're right. There was, once he's got that, in fact, I mean, that's so risky.
Yeah.
This Kinsley, who does not have any connection with, should not have any connection whatsoever with the Calverts.
Yep.
Places himself at the wedding, where guests are milling around.
Absolutely.
He's connecting himself with them.
Yeah.
He could have dropped it off at any point that night or in the morning.
Or she could have come for it. She goes to his house all the time.
Mm-hmm. Although I suppose what they're thinking is that as soon as the body's discovered, they may immediately go there.
Yeah.
But still, that night, he could have done it. We're back at Seltzer's house, and it's now the crime scene, and Columbo arrives.
It's almost a ridiculous comedy sketch with a bunch of bananas.
Yeah, it's odd behaviour. Why turn up at a crime scene with bananas?
Yeah, although I did find it amusing when they both took one. But
yeah.
Not funny enough for it to be worthwhile.
No. Because the thing is with bananas is that you immediately have a peel, and you've got all those little stringy bits.
Yeah, they're more part of the skin than part of the fruit that you have to take off. Yeah.
Not the type of... You should not be bringing food to a murder scene anyway. That's just dreadful.
Contaminating it.
Of course it is.
Plus, they could be overdosing with potassium.
Will the cop explains what he found, and we see a woman from the alarm company. She explains things from their end. The first alarm was triggered at 6:19 by the front door opening, but Seltzer was there because the call was placed and he gave the password. The second alarm was triggered at 6:24 by the panic button. And Columbo ponders what happened within those 5 minutes. And I think that's fairly obvious what happened within those 5 minutes. At one point he was alive and then he was shot dead.
Having recognised a threat and pressed the panic alarm.
Yeah.
But then he's got to get from the panic alarm to the other side of the room to get shot. And Columbo never mentioned that, and that's something that he's mentioned in a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
Like the way somebody falls or where they're found.
Yes.
But then in this one where it would seem obvious, it's not.
No. He is then told that Tracy Rose is the attorney of Seltzer. He had no family and she was the emergency contact.
And then somebody familiar pops up.
Okay, so did you like this? Were you expecting this?
No, I wasn't. And even when he did pop up, I didn't know for sure if he was faking it or if he actually was in that job.
You thought he might be faking being forensics? Why would he do that and think he could get away with that?
I don't know. I didn't think he definitely was faking it. But I thought maybe he was going to try and sort of brash his way through this encounter.
Okay.
Especially when he kind of stumbled over a question that Columbo asked him.
Yeah, well, the first question that Columbo asked, and it's not to Kinsley, it's in general, it's what's this stuff on my clothes? And this is Kinsley's introduction.
Yep.
In this role, he says it's probably a cat hair. And we discover, he is the forensics guy from LAPD who has not been in the field lately. He has been teaching at the college or the university.
Yeah.
The training academy, perhaps.
So he says. You won't recognise me because...
I love it if Columbo had said, Sledgehammer.
I don't know anything about Sledgehammer.
Not yet, you don't. If there's any Sledgehammer fans out there, let us know, get in touch.
Absolutely.
Anyway, where were we?
He's got coffee and donuts with him. He answers some questions, he stumbles over a question, and then he notices something is wrong.
Okay, before we get to what's wrong, I love his personality. Again, it might just be because I know him as Sledgehammer, but he's quite affable. He turns up with the donuts and the coffee and that type of thing. He's a pleasant guy.
Absolutely. Great
on-screen presence, very charismatic.
Agreed.
What's the problem, what's the question that he has a problem with?
I can't remember.
Think. Do you mean the cigar tip? The cigar end?
Well, he's worried about not finding the cigar end.
Yeah, he left it there. He can't find it.
No, I know about that, but it's the question. Columbo asks him a question, he starts mumbling and stumbling, and I can't remember what that question was.
Me neither.
Okay, well that was what I don't know. In terms of what he's worried about, it's the cigar butt or the cigar end being missing from the ashtray.
You can see him sort of scouring around with his eyes, trying to locate it, panicking a little bit. This is sort of germane to his whole plot. If this disappears, it's a big...
Yeah, but he gets down on his hands and knees and starts hunting as if he's expecting something to be there. He's embarrassing himself. He shouldn't do that. He should act the way he would act if he was there working.
Mm-hmm. Columbo rabbits on about his wife losing an earring, and I think Kinsley gives him advice, doesn't he? He says he should vacuum it up and then put it on a white cloth or something.
That's right.
As I've already mentioned, Sledgehammer. But let's discuss very briefly the actor who played Patrick Kinsley. It was, of course, David Rashi. Born in 1944, he has been in Burn After Reading, Impastor, Ugly Betty, All My Children, Nurses, and two of my favourite screen pleasures.
Okay.
Sledgehammer.
Okay.
Where he starred opposite Harrison Page, who we saw in Undercover.
Yes, as the other lieutenant.
Yes, he is...
Is it Brown? Lieutenant Brown?
Brown, yes. He plays Sledgehammer's boss, Captain Trunk.
Right.
Brilliant. And he was also in Cobra. Sylvester Stallone from 86, I believe. Very, very small part as a photographer who gets bumped off.
Well, Burn After Reading, that you say, is in one of my favourite films.
Mm-hmm.
Well worth watching for anyone who hasn't seen it.
He is a comedy actor. He started out in comedy and he replaced John Belushi in Chicago's Second City, which we've mentioned before, when John Belushi left to join SNL.
Right.
So he was his replacement. Big shoes to fill.
Absolutely.
But he's up to the job, in my opinion.
Well, I've not seen a lot of him, but he does well here.
Well, we'll see if we can get you to watch some more. We're off to Tracy Rose's office, so that's Seltzer's attorney.
Yes.
And he is waiting for her outside before she enters the building.
Oh, Columbo's waiting for her outside, yes. And you get a very sort of momentary not recognised as a police officer trope, but he covers it up quickly.
Yeah. What else?
What else what?
What else is worth talking about.
Well, they have a discussion about Howard Seltzer's death.
No.
You like her car?
No, come on, Ian. Did you watch this?
You like her glasses?
No. He was eating a boiled egg and he had a little salt
Well,
shaker.
he was sitting in the car doing that when he was waiting for her.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a big part of the scene. It was just kind of... It was actually the way that I like these tropes to be done. It was kind of in passing. It was there, but it wasn't the focus.
Yeah, almost. But he had a salt cellar.
As you do.
We've discussed this before. His other pocket's got a paper in it. But why would you be walking about with that?
It's his favourite snack.
Carry little sachets.
Yeah, he'd love it these days. You can buy pre-boiled eggs at the supermarket.
Why would he love it? You don't think he boils his own eggs?
No, but it's just much more convenient. Maybe Mrs. Columbo would love it.
Yeah, I think that's more accurate. There's an odd question and answer here with Tracy Rose. He asks her if Seltzer had any ex-wives or lovers. She responds very oddly about it being a sexist assumption.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, why is that sexist? It's the partner, whether it be male or female, is the number one suspect in these things.
I would have thought so.
In any case, Seltzer was never married and she has no knowledge about his personal affairs.
Yeah, she says she's not privy to that. So they talk about the case with Calvert.
Yeah, so she explains the relationship and what the lie of the land is.
Yeah.
She is none too flattering about Clifford.
You know, he hit on her at a deposition, apparently.
You don't do that at a deposition. Unless you're Ken Kratz. Columbo leaves promising to find the killer.
He's very confident. There's a nice moment at the start of this next scene.
Where is it?
Back at the Calvert home.
What's nice about it?
Kathleen's reading a very obviously fake newspaper.
Is it?
It's not even on newspaper print. It's just a white bit of paper.
Okay. Maybe it wasn't a newspaper then.
No, it was clearly meant to be. It said the Los Angeles Tribune or something.
Alright,
like
they
that.
just photocopied it, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Or they printed it on paper and didn't bother to make it into a news.
It's an odd thing to fake because they're so readily available. It's not a prop that you need to make.
No, but it had a headline about Seltzer.
Ah, right. So, yeah, I suppose.
They've mocked up this front page, but they just run off in paper because who can be bothered with the effort of
Yeah.
finding a way to print it
Some
into
guy with
newspaper?
this, yeah, some guy with, 1990s desktop publisher has put together something.
It's in the dot matrix. Columbo's pulled it off with one hand.
One hand, yeah.
Columbo arrives, and the maid lets him in to speak to Kathleen.
Correct. And she puts on an act and states that the last time Clifford met Seltzer was at the party, and at the moment he is upstairs asleep in bed.
Yeah, she's quite shocked to learn that Seltzer was dead, and then even more shocked to learn that he was murdered, despite the fact she just read it in the paper.
She hides the paper, doesn't she?
Yeah, Columbo doesn't know about the paper. That doesn't come up.
I thought that was going to come up.
Yeah.
She describes the argument and says that she will have to go and wake Clifford.
Yeah. She minimises the argument as well, though. It's quite interesting. She does what you would expect her to do if she wasn't involved.
Mm-hmm. As she goes to get Clifford, what does Columbo do?
This annoyed me.
Why?
What's he doing that for?
Doing what?
I think it's chocolates in a bowl on the table. He just grabs some, puts them in his pocket, then grabs another handful, and then a couple more, as if he can't buy his own chocolates.
Yeah, but
They're not evidence.
cops don't get paid that much, and as you know, Columbo is always out and about. As we've just noted, he has to eat on the hoof, so he needs sustenance.
You'd think he would ask.
Nah, I wouldn't think he would ask. I think he'd steal. We've seen him do this before. Food lying around, caviar, if you remember.
They should know better than to leave food lying around Columbo.
Mm-hmm. Can't trust anyone, especially a rumpled, crumpled detective.
No. Clifford makes a big entrance.
A very big entrance for a very big guy.
Indeed, he's thrilled that Seltzer's dead.
Delighted. And I think this is probably quite convincing to Columbo,
I would think so.
because you would not act like that if you were trying to pretend that.
Yeah, you act shocked or worried.
He immediately has a cigar, and later in the scene he gets a brandy.
He does, and he tells Columbo all about the incident at the party, and does not hold back on the details.
No. He asks if he is a suspect. Columbo says no, just routine, but he has a few questions, and then he will get out of their hair,
That's right.
which is quite funny because he's bald.
He is.
He actually lost that through alopecia in the 90s. He wasn't always like that. It's not bald through age.
Really?
Yeah.
Are we talking about the character or the actor?
The actor.
Right, because it'd be great if that was the character's backstory and you'd somehow learned that.
How would I learn that?
I don't know. Let's assume it was also the character's story.
Yeah, why not? So Clifford confirms that he was at the wedding and he has never been to Seltzer's house. Before the wedding, he was at the office and then he drove over there, stopping at a mini-mart to pick up some cough drops.
Yep.
Columbo seems happy enough with this, and before he leaves, he is persuaded his arm is forced into accepting a Cuban cigar.
I mean, that's the exact opposite of what happened, isn't it?
Yeah.
He demands a Cuban cigar and takes it willingly.
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't say, "Can I have another?" Just the one. He leaves, but only for a moment. He returns with a one more thing.
As always.
Just one more thing, sir, and I can't believe I forgot to ask you this.
What is it?
Do you have a gun, sir?
Yeah? You got a 38. It's registered. It's all legal.
Can I see it?
If it'll make you feel better. Kathleen, have you seen my gun?
Why, no, sweetheart.
Fix me a drink, would you?
Cliff, honey, it's a little early.
I need a drink, damn it!
Well, I'm sure there's an explanation for it, Mr. Calvert.
Like what? I shot Howard Seltzer and then got rid of the gun?
Did you? I had to ask, sir.
I know I should keep these drawers locked, but I never do. There are people in and out of here all the time. We had some trouble with the help. I fired a couple of maids and a chauffeur. We just had the kitchen remodeled. Workmen were in and out of here all the time. Anybody could have taken it. It's not here.
Well, I'm sure it's going to show up. You know how those things are. You lose something, and then the next minute you stumble upon it. I got to run along. Gee, I got a dozen stops to make. You know, the first day of a homicide investigation, you wouldn't believe it. It's murder.
There was absolutely no need for that incredibly corny joke.
No, I must admit, I liked it.
Really?
Yeah.
Apart from that nonsense, I suspect Columbo found the conversation, or at least Calvert's side of it, fairly persuasive.
Yes, if you are going to murder someone, you do not use your own gun and then just dispose of it, knowing that the cops will be looking for it if you're a suspect. It's quite clearly the type of action that someone trying to frame you would do, but it's not convincing.
No, absolutely not.
Columbo is off to the marina, but on his way there, he makes a stop by Seltzer's house, and Will, the cop, tells him that he has not as yet found that darn cat.
He gets him to keep looking.
At the marina, Columbo speaks with the bride's parents, who confirm that Clifford was indeed in attendance, and Columbo then asks for a couple of the pictures that have been taken.
Incredibly conveniently taken.
How did he get... I mean, this is what, the next day?
Yeah.
Okay, explain that to me. Those weren't Polaroids. This is in 90s.
Mm-hmm.
How have they got all these pictures already the next morning?
How is it any different from No Time to Kill when they had the photos the next day?
He was a professional photographer.
Developed them overnight, but these are the photos from the professional photographer.
No chance, Ian. A professional photographer doesn't give you... The only reason in No Time to Die, that was because that was for a magazine spread. That wasn't for the customer's use. That was for their magazine.
That's true.
For a wedding, firstly, you wait months for your own wedding photographs. Okay, and it's a big one. These are just small snaps. There's absolutely no way a photographer has went home that night, been up all night, developing standard pictures for a standard wedding.
Who
No
knows?
chance.
Maybe he did. Can't rule it out.
You can rule it out. That's a nonsense. This is nonsense.
The photos are there, so you can't argue.
I can't argue.
In
Columbo
any event-
magic.
In any event, the photographs are very fortuitously taken.
What do they show?
Well, first of all, they show Calvert with his back to the camera talking to a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's one with Calvert dancing with his wife.
Yeah. Again, in fact, that backs up my point. Those are amateur snaps. Some of them are dreadful. It's like someone with their back to someone else. It's not... A photographer would not take, or certainly wouldn't, if he is going through the negatives. He would think, oh, I snapped that one, garbage.
Yeah.
No one's buying that as they're dreadful.
I just thought there was a reference to the photographer at the next time Columbo comes looking for the pictures. I thought they made a reference to a photographer. But anyway, there's a third photo, and it very conveniently shows Mrs. Calvert looking very evil, looking at her watch to check whether it was time for the murder yet.
Yeah. On his way out, what does he accept?
A basket of apples?
Mm-hmm. So far in this episode, we have Columbo with bananas, with boiled eggs, with chocolates, taking a cigar,
Yep.
and taking some fruit.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's odd.
What does she say, actually? She's quite patronising the mother of the bride. She says, here, have this basket. Cops make so little money.
Yeah, he agrees with that, though.
We see Kathleen at a payphone next.
It's another very brief scene, and it's kind of reminiscent of It's All in the Game with the payphone interludes. But Kathleen's talking to Patrick and tells about Columbo, and then we kind of switch to the other end of the conversation.
So she believes that she's put this act on, and also she believes that Columbo is focusing on Clifford.
Yeah.
So their plan is working accordingly.
Yep. He tries to fob her off a little bit and notes that they're worried about, or he's worried about the cigar end. I'm wondering, how can he even bring that up without revealing he knows about it? There's no way.
No.
Once he gets off the phone, he asks one of his fellow investigators about the ashtrays.
Mm-hmm. I think he actually describes Columbo as goofy.
Yeah,
as well.
a bit goofy, isn't it? Yeah.
So yeah, his part of the conversation is taking place in his lab.
Yeah.
What does he ask this forensic colleague?
Well, he says, were there 4 ashtrays? I only saw 3. And the guy says there were 4 and they were all empty.
Just then, Columbo walks over with his apples and he gives one to Kinsley, who takes out his knife.
He does.
I think Columbo rabbits on about not... You must eat the peel because that's where all the vitamins are or something.
There's people who don't eat the peel of apples.
Some people. Kinsley goes on to tell Columbo that the good news is the crime scene is full of animal hairs and the killer probably had or has trace evidence on them.
You can't confirm they're cat hairs at this stage.
No, but he says give me some time.
Absolutely.
Yep. I think he also mentions the synthetic fibres that were found, which would, be similar to a carpet.
Yeah.
He then, this is the first point, he really starts to act overly eager in this episode.
Yeah.
To get involved where a forensic person should not be, or it would seem odd.
He does. He wants to know if there are any suspects in the case yet.
And Columbo mentions Clifford and his alibi.
Yeah, he talks about Clifford as a maybe.
Kinsley then describes the murder weapon. And Columbo reveals that Clifford himself owns the same caliber of a gun.
Yeah, but that proves nothing.
No, on its own, that's not enough. There are lots of 38s out there.
Yeah.
Back over to Seltzer's house, and Kinsley is looking for the missing cigar end with no luck.
We get another, what I consider to be a Columbo trope.
What's that?
When Columbo just happens to show up at the moment he needs to be somewhere.
Yes. Columbo must be thinking, why is this guy back over here? What is he looking for?
Well, the guy must be thinking, why is Columbo back over here?
Yeah, well, Columbo should be there. He's investigating the murder, but the forensic guy goes in once, does his thing, and then leaves. They don't tend to go back unless the cops themselves.
Yeah. Columbo's not even there to work.
No.
He's shown up to feed the cat.
Yeah, he's got milk and tuna, I think.
Milk and something. I thought it was cat food. Maybe it's tuna.
Maybe. Will appears, and he's found the cat at last.
He has. And Patrick hasn't found anything.
No.
Moments after putting the cat down, Will loses it again.
Mm-hmm. So, what do they do?
Well, all 3 men then look for the cat, and Patrick finds it.
Not only does he find the cat, what else does he find?
Well, the cat is at a door to a cupboard.
Mm-hmm.
When they open the door, there's the cigar end. And then Patrick does something that dumbfounded me.
What was that?
He says, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, why were you looking for that?
How would you know?
Well, he says later, or he has said already, that he was sure he saw that.
He was one of the last to arrive.
Yeah.
It's there's no reason, he doesn't need to mention they found it now. He doesn't need to say he was looking for it.
Yeah, I agree. Silly.
It's just crazy.
And at this point, Columbo explains that Clifford himself is a cigar smoker.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. So's Columbo.
True. The Calvert house is where we are next, and Kathleen listens in as Columbo questions Clifford about his cigars, and Cliff insists that any further communication should be made via his attorney.
Or at least with his attorney present.
Yes.
But Columbo doesn't leave it there.
He doesn't. As Clifford answers a phone call, what does Columbo do?
He comes back to the house. He was going to leave, and he comes back.
Nope. We
We're
miss
the scene out.
We'll not miss the scene.
Oh no, this is where he steals a bit of the cigar.
Yes. So he
He's-
pockets a half-smoked cigar of Clifford's.
For no reason.
Well, there is a reason.
Well, he wants to eliminate Clifford as a suspect, doesn't he? Or make a comparison, but I'm not sure he's entitled to take that. Certainly I don't think he'd be allowed to use that as evidence.
Not evidence against Clifford,
Yeah.
but perhaps evidence for Clifford.
Well, Clifford might give permission in that circumstance.
Yeah. So as he leaves, Kathleen puts on a little act proclaiming how much she loves Clifford and all that sort of stuff.
It's in no way convincing.
No. And outside, Columbo looks at the cigar end and he appears puzzled.
Well, yeah, he looks thoughtful. He's staring at it.
So he returns to the house and he asks Cliff where he bought his cough drops that he mentioned that he did on the way to the wedding.
And he is told.
Where was that?
It's a convenience store.
Yeah, a little mini market, or mini mart.
Quickie Mart.
Phone booth again.
Yeah.
Kathleen again updates Kinsley on Columbo's activities, and again Columbo turns up at Kinsley's lab just as they're having this conversation.
It's annoying at this stage. Must be annoying for Kinsley as well.
Yeah, but he has good news. He has analysed the cigars and the results are enough apparently for a search warrant. I don't know if Kinsley has the authority to say that. All he can say is the cigars match. It's up to the...
But it might be from experience. He has had a number of cases where that's the type of thing that's been seen as enough.
Sure. So we're over to the Calvert's house and she's acting livid as Columbo and the team bag up Cliff's clothes. Now this is exactly what she wants them to be doing.
Yeah, and you assume they've got their warrant by now.
Yeah, she smiles as Columbo discovers the suit with the cat hair on it.
Yeah, he's asked her a weird question just before that.
What was that?
He asked her, does she remember what socks he wore to the wedding?
Yeah, I suppose that's what you said earlier. Perhaps a cat would brush against your socks.
Yeah, but how do you expect someone to remember that?
It depends. I think some wives, maybe not when you are as wealthy as they are and you've got numerous suits and attire, but perhaps for your average Joe, you have your suit that you wear to a wedding, and perhaps the wife tends to give you, see, this is what you need to wear. She might have dressed him for the occasion.
Maybe.
Where are we?
Calvert's attorney's office.
Columbo arrives with Kinsley for a meeting with the Calverts, where Kinsley explains the animal fibres and the hair and all the other sort of stuff match. Yeah, so the stuff on the fibres on the suit match what was found at the scene, etc. And they agreed to postpone any further action until these findings have been independently verified.
Columbo steals another cigar.
He does, and as they head downstairs, we see him again ponder it.
In exactly the same way as the previous one.
Yeah. Back to the lab, and Kinsley confirms the hair on the suit is definitely animal hair, and the fibres are not different from the carpet in Seltzer's. I think I mentioned this earlier, it was a different scene, but the same thing applies. So he doesn't have cat hair yet, he's got animal hair, and he can tell that the fibres could be the same, but he can't confirm this as yet. I think Columbo is trying to speed him up.
Definitely is.
But Kinsley puts on a decent act of being professional. He says, listen, I don't want to make a mistake here, don't rush me, I'll get the results to you, and more specific results to you, and more accurate results to you as soon as possible. Where are we?
Well, before we leave that scene in the forensics lab, Columbo notes that the receipt for the cough drops has been recovered, and it shows that the transaction took place at 1835.
It did. And we again see something bother him.
Well, we know what it is.
We'll find out.
Okay.
So he's off to the mini-mart, and this is, I must admit, this annoyed me a little bit. So there's some chit-chat about a protein bar. Columbo can't believe it's whatever it is, $1.50 or
I didn't even take notice of this
$1.75,
bit.
yeah. And the reason he's there is to find out if someone can verify that Clifford was in the shop at that time.
Yeah.
But he gets something better. He finds out there is a CCTV, and there is a recording which shows that he was in fact there.
Yes.
But the thing that annoyed me was that after arguing about, I'm not spending $1.50 on a bar of chocolate, even though it's a protein bar, the clerk then says, okay, what do you want? Do you want them for $1 or something because you're the cops? And Columbo says, no, but it'll take 12 of them.
I think he's joking.
I don't think he was joking. How did he take 12?
It doesn't make any sense, that's why I thought it must be a joke.
Yes, it wasn't a very funny joke.
Neither are the rest of the ones in this episode.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, my favourite comedic moment was the reaction of that teller to the revelation that Columbo was in the police.
Yeah, that was okay. The teller was played by Maury Sterling. He was born in 1971. He has voiced many characters in a number of Star Wars video games. He has been in ER, All Right Already, and Star Trek Enterprise.
There you go.
Back to the lab, and Kinsley confirms that the hair was indeed cat hair before Columbo explains a problem that he has discovered.
It's not really a forensic problem.
It's not. He seems to be teaming up with Patrick at this point, doesn't he? This is his sounding board.
Yeah, for no reason other than that he's the killer. There's no other episode where Columbo works with a forensics guy like this.
No. And at this point, we come to learn later, he doesn't suspect Kinsley, so it's not as if he knows that he is a killer.
No.
Or in any way involved.
Well, no. I think he mentions at one point later he started to get suspicious at the meeting at the attorney's office.
I don't think so. I think he was just saying, he was just explaining, like, I introduced them. I had no idea they knew each other.
Okay.
Anyway, what's the problem that he has now?
He's trying to map out Calvert's route, and again, I don't understand the problem here. He talks about the cough drops being bought after the murder, but the shop not being en route from the crime scene to the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously, he would go out of his way to place himself somewhere other than at the crime scene. Seems like a fairly normal thing to have done. Assuming there's enough time for him to get from the scene of the murder to that shop, why would he not set it up to look like he left later and couldn't have got that far in time for the murder?
Because that doesn't prove anything. It would just prove that he drove somewhere. That's not an alibi.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because when the killing's taking place, you then go to a shop and then drive somewhere else. That doesn't create an alibi.
No, but Columbo's really worked up about this. He couldn't have done it because the shop's not on the way from the murder to the wedding.
No, I think he's saying that it's illogical. It's illogical because what you're suggesting is that it would be a sensible thing to do. But it doesn't. It's not sensible because it doesn't achieve anything. It's not an alibi. If you know what time the killing took place,
yep,
and then you're going to another shop to buy something and then travelling somewhere else, that can be mapped out. They'd say, well, all you've done is this. It doesn't provide an alibi. But
they don't say that.
Yeah, but what Columbo's saying is, okay, why would you do that?
Because you want to go to a shop that's on the route you would have been expected to take. So the crime scene isn't on his route to the wedding. So he has to go back to a shop that is on the route he would have taken. Yeah,
but that's very easily shown to be, because that's what happened. You can easily show, well, that's what you've done. It's not an alibi.
But I think equally it's not anything the other way around. I don't think it shows that, oh no, he's not likely to have done this.
Yeah, maybe.
I would have thought it'd be a fairly standard thing to think, oh, I'm going to go back the way I would have gone. I would have left at this time, so I would have been there by then, and work it out that way.
Yeah, but you would assume that you know that they can identify the time of the killing. So therefore, you're going to a shop after that. Yeah, so the cough shop can verify where you were. Yeah. Half an hour after the killing took place. That doesn't help you.
Yeah, but you don't need that to show that you definitely didn't do it. You just need to show that, yeah, I left the house at this time, I stopped at the shop and I went to the wedding. I was never anywhere near that house.
Okay. In fairness, I think Columbo's got a point here.
Really? I thought they overplayed this badly.
Okay, fair enough. In any case, Kinsley struggles to come up with an answer.
Yeah, he suggests he might have been in shock, and Columbo essentially laughs at him.
Yeah.
But really, why is Columbo asking a guy who's not trained to do this for an answer anyway?
Columbo goes to leave, but returns with a question that Kinsley has even more difficulty answering.
Patrick, let me ask you a question. If Calvert didn't do it, who else could it be?
Somebody on that list that the lawyer gave you, I would think.
Okay, but let's assume for just a moment that it was Calvert's missing gun that fired the bullet. In that case, if Calvert didn't do it, who else had access to the gun?
The help.
I would have said the wife before the help.
You're probably right.
I mean, the help, no motive that I can think of, but the wife, she had a motive. Wouldn't she be affected if her husband lost the lawsuit?
You would think so?
We don't know a lot about her, do we?
No. No, we don't.
That marriage, is it a good one? We don't know, do we?
No. We don't know.
You know what I want to do? I want to meet with her. I want to tell her honestly what's on my mind, get a reaction. You study forensic psychology. Why don't you come along? We both take a look at her. I set that up for tomorrow. That'll be good. You and me together, Pat. 3 eyes are better than one.
I do like that little quote.
Yeah. 3 eyes are better than one, and I think that it shows that, again, Peter Falk is not adverse to poking fun at himself. Although, as you mentioned, it's easy to poke fun at yourself when you are perhaps on £300,000 or £400,000 or dollars per episode.
Absolutely.
We're at a rendezvous point next, and Kinsley and Kathleen are catching up but panicking.
Well, she's panicking. He's a bit more sanguine, I would say.
She's starting to turn a little bit, I think, on him.
Yeah, she thinks the plan's falling apart and he's not doing his bit.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks it's fine, just let them do their job, and they're going to come to the conclusion that there's evidence enough against Clifford.
Yeah, she wants to force it too much, and he's saying, no, step back. If we force it, it'll look too obvious. Although he's already made that mistake by this cigar tip nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, he's already sunk their ship, essentially, but he's not aware of that. And he reassures her that the only thing that can harm them is them. And he's probably right. Mm-hmm. But they have.
Kinsley then reveals that he is to be at the meeting tomorrow when Columbo is going to question her.
Yeah, she needs to nail that interview, essentially. So they're going to rehearse.
They are. And we go to Barney's.
Which has once again been refitted.
Entirely different place.
Unless he just keeps moving around. Is he an itinerant sort of barman?
Doesn't pay the rent and then just moves on to
Phoenix
the next place.
is
Yeah. This is where the meeting is being held. And this is quite nice. Columbo, to use one of your American sports terminologies, I think he throws a curveball immediately. He states that they're having issues or problems and don't necessarily think that Clifford is the guilty party.
Yeah. She's reacting fairly well to that. She's pleased, doesn't take it badly, can't help with stolen gun still.
Nope.
And then weirdly they bring coffees to the table next to them.
Well, I think that the waiter was going to perhaps put the tray down and then serve them, but before that could happen, Kinsley turns around and hands out the coffee.
He does.
What else does he do?
He passes it over the sweeteners and gets on with the interview.
Mm-hmm. But we see Columbo react very oddly.
Something occurs to him.
And he excuses himself and goes to the gents.
Yeah, which baffles Patrick and Kathleen.
Yeah. They discuss with each other, what could have happened. Did they let something slip? Did they react wrongly? But they both seem quite confident that nothing untoward happened there. And we see Columbo. He's thinking, isn't he? He smiles. He understands something, I think.
He's had an epiphany.
Yeah. Well, a marble in there that really started to roll.
Yeah, and when he comes back, he pretends he's ill.
He does, and they adjourn the meeting.
They do. Will brings the car around.
Mm-hmm. And something odd happens here.
Yeah, I think Patrick's there. He's in the car somehow already. He comes out of the back seat.
I think maybe it's parked around in a car park at the back.
Yeah,
so he gets out, jumps in and says, right, bring the car round the front. He gets out of the car and the back door is opened.
Yep.
Columbo and Kathleen appear at the door to Barney's, and as she walks down the steps to the car, he opens the passenger side door for her. We're not at this point immediately aware, or meant to be immediately aware of what's going on, but we see Columbo react again.
It's constant this episode. It's just, he's got an epiphany. Look, he's thinking of something. At some point, I think he even talks out loud to nobody about the clunky exposition throughout this episode was diabolical.
Yeah.
It was a bad piece of writing.
They drive back to LAPD and they all sort of go their separate ways. And at this point, Columbo asks the driver where, I think, was it Will? Was that the driver?
Yeah, Will was driving.
Yeah. He asked Will where Kathleen sat when he picked her up to take her to Barney's. And he says that she wanted to be in the front, and Columbo guesses that it is because she may get car sick in the back.
We'll come back to that.
I think this is a bit you're referring to. Columbo gives us viewers a bit of exposition when he talks out loud, and he says, what? Holy jamolies.
They knew each other well.
Yeah. Over to the DA's office, and she suggests that due to forensic evidence, perhaps Clifford is willing to plea bargain.
He doesn't seem too keen on that, and then Columbo barges in.
For no reason at all, because he's trying to prevent this progressing any further just now, but he has no new evidence and can't do anything about it.
Well, obviously one of his superiors has sent the case to the DA.
Mm-hmm.
So he's obviously been overruled within his own department.
Yeah.
We didn't see any of that.
Nope. And
that might have been a better scene than some of the rubbish exposition we've had.
Yeah, I mean, this scene was pointless.
Well, yeah, it's just him wanting more time. In any event, there's no deal to be done, and everybody leaves.
Over to the Calvert's house, and Columbo turns up late at night, not as a cop or a kangaroo, but as a human being.
Terrible writing. The writer, who wrote this episode? Tell me now, I want to know so I can shout about them.
Charles Kipps.
How many Columbos has he done?
Charles Kipps has wrote one Columbo episode.
Was he then tarred and covered in feathers and dumped in a river somewhere?
No, but perhaps he should have been. He has also written for the Cosby Mysteries, Fat Albert, Law and Order, Criminal Intent, but yeah, not a fantastic resume.
No, I mean, we can hardly knock it, given that we don't write. Anyway, I wasn't impressed with his work on this episode.
Yeah, there was weaknesses, wasn't there?
There were some good performances that salvaged what was a bad piece of writing, as far as they could. Anyway, Calvert's showing off his wedge cutter.
Columbo admits that he thinks that Clifford is innocent. This doesn't appear to appease Clifford. He doesn't really care at this point what Columbo thinks.
Yeah, he's going to prison.
Yeah.
Columbo already knew about the wedge cutter and is given one as a gift by Calvert.
And Columbo mentions that the specific method, this wedge cutting, was different from the square cut-off that was found at Seltzer's.
That's right.
And Clifford basically considers that to be a dreadful way of doing it. He would never cut a cigar like that, and neither should Columbo.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Columbo then asks him about the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to know what he did, where he was, and I think Calvert has a bit of trouble placing his wife at one stage.
Well, he says, yeah, he wasn't sure where she was. He didn't see the bride and groom come out because he was with his friend, Ted.
This is his athletic friend, Ted.
Yeah, his rotund friend, Ted. Big belly.
Columbo's just very rude here about fat people, and I find it offensive.
Columbo, however, seems happy about the information that he has been given, and he says he has to run.
Yeah, he thanks him for the cutter and disappears.
Did you enjoy Barry Corbin, who played Clifford Calver?
Very much. I thought he put in a superb performance.
Yeah, I agree. Born in 1940, he has been in anger management, One Tree Hill, No Country for Old Men, The Big Easy. Most famous probably for Northern Exposure, Matlock, Murder, She Wrote, Dallas, and two of my childhood favourites, War Games, and, in fact, still to this day, one of my favourite movies, Stir Crazy, with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. He played a warden in that.
Is that War Games with Matthew Broderick?
Yes.
I like that film.
Get on the bull. Sorry, that's from Stir Crazy.
Oh, right, okay. Columbo wants to see the wedding photos once again.
Yes, so he heads over to the bride's parents' house. It's late o'clock.
It's the middle of the night and they're woken, I think.
Yep, and he gets some wedding pictures from them again.
Yeah, and then the next day at the grand jury hearing.
Yeah, we're outside the office and Kinsley arrives in a rush, but Columbo tells him that the indictment has been postponed, maybe cancelled.
Yep, new evidence has caused the grand jury to determine not to consider this case, right? Or the DA not to push this case at this point.
Evidence provided by Columbo. He showed them these photographs that had something apparently to do with the decision. Kinsley is anxious, and he's too anxious for just being the forensic guy on this.
Yeah.
And Columbo shows him copies of these pictures. they highlight the problem that Columbo has. So, explain.
Super convenient, really. There's a photo of Calvert after the ceremony but before the reception, with his back to the camera showing no cat hairs.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, we see him dancing with his wife, with the back of his suit, covered in cat hairs, and her hand probably rubbing some more on.
Yeah, the one thing about that I'm not convinced is going to stand up is that you'd have to be very sure that the photograph is accurate. You know, it wasn't a case of the light or whatever. You know, how can you be sure that shows there was nothing on that jacket ever?
Yeah. At this point, Columbo continues his kleptomania.
What does he do?
He steals Patrick's knife.
He does.
He borrows it to cut a cigar and then pockets it.
He then explains that this new revelation puts the wife, Kathleen, firmly in the picture.
And the DA wants to see her.
Mm-hmm.
He specifically asks Patrick if he had a prior relationship with her, and he denies it.
Kathleen then arrives in a car across the street. Columbo then starts to turn the screw in this relationship, and he asks Kathleen the same question. Did she know Kinsley?
She denies it, and then he takes a very definite, unethical turn in his questioning.
What's that?
He lies to her and says that Patrick is trying to point the finger at her, that he brought Columbo the photographs that prove that she is the one that's responsible.
Yeah. You see, I'm not... I mean, it is unethical, but I'm not sure if that's not standard practice. When you question culprit or two suspects who've been involved, who have been in cahoots, you'll often put them in different rooms and say that, oh yeah, he said that you did it. You know, and then go to the other one and say, he says you did it.
I don't think you're allowed to do that anymore.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure that they can imply or whatever else. I don't think they can state things that are clearly untrue.
Okay.
Someone can maybe update me on the law, but that's my understanding.
What happens next?
She starts to get worried, and he produces Patrick's knife, which she says, or she concedes, looks familiar. Well, I mean, of course it looks familiar. It's your bog standard Swiss Army knife, the standard red one that everybody in the 90s had.
Yeah, he says that Kinsley claims that the knife was found nearby in the yard and that it contains fibres from a foreign car, just like hers.
Yeah, a Mercedes, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, he gets her all wound up at this stage, and then he points her in the general direction of the DA and gives her a shove.
Mm-hmm. She's happy to blab.
Well, I think she feels she has to at this stage. So Columbo toddles back over the street to talk to Patrick.
Yeah, before he does, he advises her in the future, if asked about the relationship, she should admit to knowing Kinsley, because apparently that cat is out of the bag.
Indeed.
Back across to Kinsley, who has been watching this conversation.
Yeah, and he's going to misrepresent that conversation to Kinsley now.
Mm-hmm. He tells him that Kathleen will be talking to the DA after seeing these pictures. And he then goes on to discuss Clifford's cigar cutter.
Did you know that Clifford Calvert uses a wedge-type cigar cutter?
What?
It's like this. This is what he uses.
No, I didn't know that.
Well, you do know that this is the cigar end found at the murder scene.
Yeah.
And you do know that you were very anxious about its disappearance, and you do know that you were so anxious that you went back alone to search for it. And you do know that this knife belongs to you.
Of course I know it's mine. Are you finished with it?
No. Because if I find a microscopic piece of this tobacco on this knife, you are in deep manure, Pat.
I can't believe I'm hearing this.
Let me give you a word of advice. In the future, if anyone asks you if you knew her before this case, I suggest you tell the truth. Because that cat is out of the bag.
We move on to the worst closing scene that I can remember in the whole of Columbo.
Yeah, I mean, there's no gotcha there as such. We just are, well, we find out in the next scene at Barney's that via a news broadcast that both parties have turned on each other and are blaming each other for the death.
That's right.
Not a hugely satisfying wrap-up, was it?
Not at all.
Not only that, we are treated like imbeciles.
Morons, I would say.
How? In what way?
Essentially, they decide that the Columbo watching audience is not smart enough to have picked up any of the clues in this episode. So they must now lay them out one by one in words of one syllable.
And reenact them.
Yes, just in case you can't understand the words of one syllable, here is it in pictures.
Yeah. So yeah, they talk about the coffee, they talk about the cars, and they talk about the cigars and all that type of stuff. We get the waiter who brought over the coffee.
Yep.
One of the worst acting performances in Columbo, I think. It was Vincent J. McAvity, the director's son, born in 1965.
I'm sure he went through a rigorous audition process.
He was obviously the best person for the job. Not only that, he was the best person for the job, I'd imagine, in in total, the 3 Columbo episodes he was in, the 1 Diagnosis Murder episode he was in, and the 2 Murder, She Wrote episodes he was in.
A variety of directors.
Well, when you say a variety, if one is a variety, if his dad was a variety.
Yes, well,
Yeah.
the less said about that, the better, I suspect.
So yeah, that's that. Not a dreadful episode.
You missed out Columbo trying the wedge cut cigar and finding it disgusting and switching back to his usual cut
Yeah,
by biting the end off it.
he's a caveman.
A dramatic finale there. The last bit was weird and unnecessary and insulted the viewer. That's the note that I took, and that's how I still feel.
I agree. But overall, like I say, it was an enjoyable romp.
I think I mentioned this partway through. Sheridan Iain and Barry Corbin, David Rash, how you want to pronounce that, were very good. Peter Falk was very good, and those 4 helped the episode not be terrible.
Yeah. I really did enjoy Rashi's performance. Love the guy.
Should look into that other show he did then.
Might do. A little bit of production information, Ian. How about that?
Okay.
15th of May 1997 at 88 minutes in length.
Okay.
So that's about a 2-year gap.
Is that right?
I'm not sure, we're seeing this episode's okay.
Yeah.
Not sure if I was waiting 2 years for it, I would be...
Yeah, but why did they bother? They've brought back a show with Columbo's wife and the director's son and a whole lot of exposition in case we've forgotten how to watch Columbo in the interim period.
Yeah. As mentioned, yeah, Vincent McAvity, director. This is his last of 7.
Oh well.
His first was Rest in Peace, Mrs. Columbo, so he was a late comer to the Columbo party.
But he stuck around.
He did. Charles Kipps, as already mentioned, was the writer. And let me see, anyone else that I've not mentioned here? Yes. Will Nye played Will. He was born in 1953. He has been in Murder, She Wrote, Moonlighting, Hill Street Blues, and this Columbo episode was his last ever on-screen role.
Wait, Will Nye?
Will Nye.
As in the same person as Bill Nye?
Rhymes with it, yeah.
It's the same name.
Yeah, it was...
William.
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't more things, just used a different name.
Could have been. The bride's father, Harry Jenkins, was played by Franklin Cover. Died in 2006, age 77. He was in many episodes of The Jeffersons. Right. Not watched that myself, but there was a lot of them, so it must have been popular. He was also in Wall Street, ER, and Naked City.
Heard about that before.
We have. And of course, as mentioned, with Shera Denise and also John Finnegan as a Barney.
Of course. Is that the last Barney, or do we see him again?
See him again, but this is the last Shera Denise.
Oh well.
Her first role was as Molly in Fade In to Murder.
I think she has been just fine whenever she's appeared.
Perfectly acceptable.
Absolutely.
In fact, in some cases, enjoyable to watch.
I thought this might be her best performance, actually.
I quite liked her in Rockstar.
Also good in that one.
And she was good in Undercover.
Agreed.
Trivia. The Calvert's home is the former estate of Clark Gable, and it was filmed generally as was, so that's actually how it looked.
That's quite interesting. It's good trivia.
Fancy doing the episode review?
Let's get it done.
Motive.
Money.
Yeah. I'm still not 100% convinced by the motive. Alibi.
At the wedding?
Yeah, not really an alibi. It was more a case of the framing.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, because Kinsley doesn't really have an alibi at all. He's not even asked for one.
No. Clues. We have the cigar end, the inconsistent cat hair on the jacket photographs, the journey via the mini-mart, the coffee and the car behaviour, Kinsley himself being overly invested in the outcome, Kinsley suggesting that the help was a likely suspect rather than the first likely suspect rather than the wife. Anything else?
Yeah, when he was scrabbling around looking for the cigar end before they knew it was there.
Mm-hmm.
And also him being back at the house later.
True. Gotcha.
It wasn't really a gotcha.
Just the two of them turning on each other.
As they were wont to do.
Next week, Ashes to Ashes.
That rings a bell.
A returning face.
It's not the last episode, but it would have been a good title for a final episode.
Would have been.
Anyway, we'll deal with that next week. In the meantime, thank you for all your questions and answers. It's a bit late because by the time you hear this, we'll have recorded our question and answer episode, but thank you for your contributions so far.
Oh, keep them coming anyway. We might
just say, come on. Keep them coming if you want, but our first episode will now be in the can and we'll get it out to you soon. Look out for us on iTunes, rate, review, subscribe if you can, helps more people find the show. Continue to contribute on Twitter, Facebook and over at columbopodcast.com because we really appreciate it when people engage with us, and we'll see you next week.
Cheerio.
Bye bye.
You have been listening to the Columbo podcast from Heard Yet Media.